Hello, my CFA friends. How are you, my friends? Welcome to episode 2 of CFA Level 1 Ask Me Anything. Let's get started. Today's question comes from Isabella. And Isabella is a friend of the channel. Thank you very much, Isabella. So the question is, MS, so we're only given the initials of this person, not the full name, but MS, who is a CFA charter holder, MS CFA, uses knowledge partly consolidated from his previous employer to educate existing and potential clients at an unbeatably low monthly price. Does MS violate Standard 4 duties to employers? Now, it's a very interesting question on multiple levels. Not to mention that I might have an idea who inspired that question. I might know someone with those initials. But thank you very much for the question, Isabella. We haven't really spent too much time on the channel talking ethics other than GIPS. So I'm going to be using your question here in order to delve into Standard 4 duties to employers. Now, your question actually sort of refers to Standard 4A, which is duties to employers dash loyalty. So it's actually our loyalty to our employer. So before we attempt to answer that question, let's actually read what the standard states. So in matters related to their employment, members and candidates, so obviously not just candidates, not just members, both of them must act for the benefit of their employer and not deprive their employer of the advantage of their skills and abilities. So what that basically is saying is, as long as you're employed, you must do your best for your employer. If you have skills and abilities, you must make them available to the best of your ability to your employer. You must not deprive your employer from the advantage of your abilities. Also, you must not divulge confidential information. That means you must not tell anybody else outside of the company about confidential matters within this company, or in any other way cause some harm to your employer. Remember, the employer is paying your monthly salary. You have duty to your employer. Now, obviously, Isabella's question is surrounding the idea that at some point you may want to leave your employer. So we need to know what the best practices are if you want to leave your employer. So if you intend to leave your employer, you must continue to act in the best interest of your employer, okay, as long as you're employed. Because remember, even if you are not happy with your current job, for example, you're still getting paid a salary. You cannot stop doing your best. I mean, just to give you an example, when I was leaving my employer, I was asked to teach a 3-day course, literally the 3 days, the final 3 days of my contract, I had to teach a three-day course. Now, someone could have called sick, right? It's possible. You could say, well, I'm not feeling really well those 3 days. And, you could call sick. Not me, my friends. I went in there and I tried to deliver the best course of my life. And actually, the students appreciated that. And they gave me a little card at the end of it, which was really, really sweet. It was a nice card from my students. And I keep it here. And, it's a great memory. It's a great memory from my final teaching day. Okay, so must continue to act in the best interest of your employer. Second, maintain confidentiality. Okay, that's very important. You still have duties to employer, even though you want to leave them. Now, one thing that you are allowed to do is you're allowed to make preparations to go into business. So you're still employed, but it is allowed for you to start preparing for your next venture. So, for example, if you, let's say, needed to rent office space, you might take some time to look at possible offices. Okay, so make preparations as long as those preparations are not in breach with your duties to your employer. Okay, we need to make sure that you know what you must not do. So first of all, you must not solicit clients before the end of your employment. This is very, very important. So as long as you're employed, you're not allowed to contact the clients or prospective clients of your employer and try to effectively steal them from your employer. You cannot act to the detriment of your employer. Remember, you have to be an ethical person. Also, you must not take any work models. Okay, so if your bank has some financial models or spreadsheets or textbooks or reports, anything like this, or even client lists, especially client lists, I would say, you cannot take them. You cannot take any physical copies. You cannot take any electronic copies. And that applies even if you developed it. Oh, but Martin, it was me who developed it, right? How can I not take my own work? Remember, you developed that work while you were getting paid a salary. So your work belongs to your employer, not to you. That's both from an ethical standpoint, but also probably from a contractual standpoint. If you read your contract, it probably says that any work you developed while in employment belongs to your employer. Okay, so that's very, very important. If you happen to have any physical copies or electronic copies after leaving your employer, you must return them to your employer or you must destroy them. Okay? However, and here's a key point, and I think goes back to Isabella's question, your skills and your experience belong to you, okay? They don't belong to your employer, they belong to you. So if you work for an employer for, let's say, 20 years, and you became an expert in your field and one day decided to leave and use that wonderful knowledge that you acquired with your new employer or in your new venture, from an ethical standpoint, that is okay. Now, there may be non-compete agreements, and you have to look into those. But from an ethical standpoint, it is absolutely fine to use the skill and experience you acquired with one employer, with another employer, or in a new venture. Okay, and also, very key distinction, you were not allowed to take any client lists or any models, even if you develop them, but you are allowed to recreate your work from memory. Also, if you know the names of clients, or any sort of other information that is in your head, that's not privileged information. So you are allowed to contact clients after leaving your employer if you simply know they exist. Of course, if you took the client list and then were using the client list to contact your clients, that'll be a violation because you will have effectively stolen property from your employer. But if you're doing this from memory, if you're redeveloping models from memory, this is absolutely fine. So back to the question then, does MS violate duties to employer? The short answer here is no, he doesn't, assuming that it's a he. I have a feeling it's a he. And that's because we're talking about knowledge, skill, experience. So that's not proprietary to his prior employer. Now, if he were to use, for example, specific information that belongs to his, specific models or slides or presentations that belong to his previous employer, that'll be a problem. But mere usage of knowledge and experience is not a violation, Isabella. Well, you guessed it, Isabella is a friend of the channel, and you can become one very, very easily too. All you need to do is just go to stoyanov.co.uk/revision. You will get my question-based revision there. Also, consider private tuition. It's really important to get some private tuition at some point, even if it's just an exam clinic the week before your exam or an ongoing support. You will get 10% off one-to-one tuition with me, my friends. And if you want your question featured on the AMA sessions, please submit your question to stoyanov.financial@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.